Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Daily Callus. My name is Miles Greene. I hope you don't mind the change of scenery, but I found it just a little bit easier to record in the bedroom, and I hope that that's okay with you. Today we have a video all about chord shapes, and guitar players already know that they can play a D chord here and an A chord here, but some guitar players aren't aware that you can actually apply those chord shapes up the neck to produce different chords. Now, this is a system that's generally known as the CAGED system, but instead of looking at that in its entirety, we're just going to be looking at the A shape and the D shape. And my goal really by the end of this video is to help you feel more comfortable playing the A shape and the D shape up the neck to produce any of the major chords. Also, if you're interested in purchasing the PDF that accompanies this lesson, it covers the CAGED system and the A and D chord shapes. Please check out my store, The Daily Callus, on Etsy. So the goal for today's lesson is to learn how to apply the D chord shape and the A chord shape up the fretboard to produce different major chords. For example, this is my D chord here, but this is an F chord using a D shape. And this is an A chord here, but this is a C chord using an A shape. So consider this. I know that to move from a D bar chord to an E bar chord, I need to move 2 frets up, or 1 full step. D to E. So what happens if I play my D chord here and I move it 2 frets up? Will I produce an E chord as well? Yes, I will. And from this point on, let's call this the D shape. Taking a look at our A chord, we have an A bar chord here. And to play a B chord, I know I have to move 2 frets up, or 1 full step. B, A, B. So if I play my A chord here, and I move it 2 frets up, will I produce a B chord? Yes, I will. So from this point on, let's call this the A chord shape. So this is really the principle that we're going to be looking at today. So again, here's what I want you to really take away from this lesson, that you can apply the D shape and the A shape on different frets to produce every major guitar chord. But just because we know this concept exists doesn't mean we already know how to use it. So what are some helpful tips that we can apply to help us in our guitar playing in real time? So the first thing to know is that with any chord shape, the root note is what determines the chord. So let's take a look at the D shape first. The root note of the D shape is always going to be on the B string. It's traditionally played with this ring finger. So to me, when I'm playing, I'm sort of looking at the note that is being played by the ring finger as my anchor note. And the reason that this chord works as a D chord is because the note that is being played with the ring finger on the B string is a D note. So in essence, if you know your root notes on the B string and apply the chord shape on top of that root note, you can play that note's chord. So for example, I know that I have an A note here on the B string. And if I apply my D shape on top of that, I produce an A chord. A note, A chord. I also know that here's an F note on the B string. Again, being played with the anchor point, which is my ring finger. And if I apply the D shape on top of this F note, I produce an F chord. So next, let's take a look at the A shape. So the root of the A shape is always going to be on the G string, which is traditionally played with the middle finger. And again, I sort of see the middle finger that lies on the G string as the anchor point for the A shape. And in this case, the G string 2nd fret note is an A, and when we apply the A shape on top of that, we get our traditional A chord. But if we move up the fretboard and find other root notes, we can produce different major chords. So for example, I know that I have a C note here on the G string on the 5th fret. And if I apply my A shape on top of that, I can turn that C note into a C chord. For another example, I know that I have an E note on the 9th fret of the G string. And again, I'm sort of seeing that as my anchor point for the A shape. And I apply the A shape on top of it. I'm going to have to play it like this because my fingers are just too fat. And again, I have an E note here. And I'm going to apply the A shape to produce an E chord. So just for a quick review, you should remember that the root note of a chord shape is always going to determine the chord tone. So for example, with our D shape, our root note is always going to be on the B string and is traditionally played with the ring finger. For our A shape, the root note is always going to be on the G string, which is traditionally played with the middle finger. And this applies to minor and major chords as well. So for example, we know that I have an A chord here, because this is my A note. I can also play an A minor. We know that this is an E chord, because we have an E note here. I can play an A minor shape to play an E minor, C minor, C major, G major, G minor, and so on. So for our example, we're going to take a look at a blues progression in the key of E. And generally, a blues progression follows a 1-4-5 rule, which in the key of E would be E for our 1 chord, A for our 4 chord, and B for our 5 chord. But let's take a look at the other E, A, and B chords that we can play using the D and A shape. So I know that I have an E here, because this is my E note. I'm applying the A shape here. I know that I have an A note here on the B string, so I can play an A chord here. I know that I have a B note here on the B string. I can play a B here. I can also play a B chord here, because I have a B note on the G string here. And last but not least, we can always play our traditional EAB that way. So let's jump in. So what I would do to practice at home is I would follow these 3 steps. And these 3 steps really helped me when I was figuring this out. Number 1 would be find and memorize 1 new chord per day using the A and D chord shape. So for example, let's take F. Try and figure out where your F chord is using the A shape. And I know that I have an F note here, so I can apply my A shape. And I know that I have an F note here, so I can apply my D shape. And again, this goes for minors as well. F minor, F minor, Number 2 would be to take turns alternating between the A and D shapes as you apply your different chords. So for example, I know that I have a G. Quickly try and figure out where your other G notes are. Let's take another one. Let's take a C. I know that I have a C here and here. And then lastly, probably the most important one that will speed all of this up is try and memorize all of the notes on the B and the G string. That way you can quickly find your anchor point and apply your D and A chord shapes. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video useful and learned something about applying the A shape and the D shape chords. Stay tuned for more videos. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a patron at patreon.com, and you can also check out my store on Etsy called the Daily Callus. I have a few more videos in the pipeline, so again, stay tuned. I really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you next time.